Are we on? All right. Welcome to the fourth edition of the So Men podcast. My name is Matt Brozick. I have Wade H. Is it Harland Abed?
It is Harlan, yeah.
Yes, the second.
The second,
right?
yep.
And I have our awesome guest. We have Shelly Sabatka from the Landing Restaurant on Madison Lake, which maybe...
the Landing Bar and Grill.
Okay, sorry. Is that what it is? Did I screw it up? Landing Bar and Grill?
Landing Bar and Grill.
Okay, well,
There you go.
I should know that because I've been there a lot.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's just the landing. When you're from Madison Lake, it's just the landing.
yeah, it's like the people are not from Madison Lake when you say, "Well, I'm going to the landing," and they go to the DNR access, like
There you
get
go.
your boat in. It's
They're
like,
like,
no,
"Oh."
you're an idiot. We're going to the landing. Like that's where it is.
Duh.
But anyway, okay, yeah. So episode 4, we're getting away from ourselves. What's the So Men podcast? What's our thing we're gonna do now? It's like the conversations that we're gonna let you in on that we would have had anyway.
Yeah,
Something
pretty
like
much.
that. I'm pretty much changing it every time.
We'll
So
work on the tagline.
It'll be fine.
Conversations we wanted to have, probably would have anyway. So Men podcast.
By like episode 10, we'll have that
Right.
figured out. But right now, we're
Doesn't matter.
just kind of figuring it out. But so today we wanted to have a conversation. I know you and I were just talking about, Shelly, you and I were talking offline, where Jackie Sprague, when we were talking about, hey, who are some really interesting guests that I think could bring some unique perspective to what's going on in the world right now. And she had said that you would be a good option. Now, I don't know if you're excited that she volunteered you or not.
I'll even the score with her later.
It's like, thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, so maybe I wasn't supposed to say that. But no, I just really want to thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
out of your day. Obviously, you're busy, and this is your time to be busy. We're sitting here at 5:45 right now, p.m. And so just wanted to learn a little bit more about who you are, where are you from, where were you born? Did you come here? Are you a transplant? Are you from the area?
Perfect. I grew up in central Iowa on a farm, and I started my restaurant career when I was 10. I would ride my bicycle into our town of 200 and help LaRue, that owned the cafe, wash dishes, deliver plates, whatever she'd let me do. I think half the time I didn't even ask to be paid. I just had her feed me. And so I went from there and I did some franchise work at Country Kitchen in central Iowa, from Marshalltown to Ames. My husband and I got married and moved to Minnesota.
Wait, so that's John, right?
Yep, my husband John.
So where's John from?
John is from western Kansas.
And
we
he
actually
came to Minnesota.
He
How
did.
does this happen?
His job brought us to western Minnesota.
But how'd you meet him originally?
I think you've been prompted on this story.
No, actually, I have not.
no.
I literally don't know anything about this. To be
I was the
upfront.
closest restaurant to his house,
Okay.
and he thought I drove a Corvette. And that's how we met. He's like, I got to meet this girl. She runs a restaurant.
And drives a Corvette.
And drives a Corvette.
Sounds pretty badass to me.
So what I'm saying is, like,
I'd want to meet you at that point. That sounds pretty cool.
do you need any more compelling reasons? Like, she's attractive, or opposite sex. She runs, yes, check. She owns a business, runs a restaurant, and, dig this, she drives a frickin' Corvette, dude.
All right.
I'm in. I'm going to find out. And it's next to my house.
Yeah.
So where is this now?
So this is Ames, Iowa.
Okay. And what-ish, if you don't want to say
So
what year.
93-ish.
Okay.
90,
Okay.
92, 93.
Okay.
And,
so Wade and I were like 8.
Yeah.
I was 12.
Sorry. Okay, I was
I'm
probably more like 7, but whatever.
40.
It doesn't matter. We're good. We're just talking. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm
So
interrupting.
he was very disappointed to find out that I did not own the Corvette.
Okay.
But I redeemed myself. I learned how to ride motorcycles, and we have traveled most of the 50 states via Harley. So I did redeem myself. It just wasn't in
what kind of
Corvette.
Harley? Because I'm a motorcycle guy.
I have a
too.
Street Glide, and
Okay.
he has. Oh my gosh, I can't even think
So
what his is.
this is total side note because I didn't know you were motorcycle people. So my goal, I don't know if I've ever told you this.
Yep, I know.
My goal
I'm
when
waiting for
I
the story.
graduated high school is I wanted to own a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I graduated in 05. I bought a 2000 Harley Davidson Sportster 1200C, all black and chrome except for red pinstripes, and I put 18-inch ape hangers on it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And my hair looks a lot like yours when
Okay.
it gets long, and I had it way long. Like
Yeah.
I could grab it off my back right here. And I left high school on my Harley and drove up to Duluth to go to college with the ape hangers right about here and
Yeah.
the hair just flying behind me. I was living the dream. I put in a Duluth, so I went to Duluth. Sorry, now you got me on a total tangent. I went to Duluth for school, which has 48 days of summer. And I put 10,000 miles on that bike in a Duluth summer, which is
That's impressive.
That's a lot of riding.
Did you drive around like Superior or something
Oh, dude,
crazy
we went
like that?
everywhere. You would find a road and you would just take it, and wherever it led, you'd find the end of it, and then you turn around and come back. There would be days I literally had like $10 in my pocket, and like $7 of that was for gas because I got 60 miles to the gallon, so it wasn't a big deal. It was a little worse when you have your hands up here,
Yep.
but
For some drag.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So we'll have to talk about that more. But anyway,
Absolutely.
sorry. So you redeemed yourself.
Yes, I redeemed myself, and he transferred to southern Minnesota or Mankato. He could live anywhere in his territory. He transferred to Minnesota in '93, about the time we were. Our wedding was in September, and he was transferred to Minnesota in May.
Okay.
So as soon as we were married, we moved up here, and have been, except for a stint 5 years in North Carolina, we have been here the entire time. And we call Minnesota home today, so we're here to stay.
Marshalltown?
Right,
So-
correct.
Was that the town in central Iowa?
That was the largest town with streetlights
And
where
so-
I grew up near. Our farming community was Laurel, Iowa.
Laurel, gotcha.
Again, about 200 people.
Okay.
A little small town cafe there. And then I worked at the Country Kitchen in Marshalltown. I transferred and went to Ames.
So this
I
is
was a
the
cyclone.
second guest in a row from Iowa,
From Central Iowa.
from central Iowa, basically.
Yeah.
So when you're 10 and you're riding your bike, and was the name LaRue?
Correct. Her name was her name was LaRue, and I don't know why we hit it off, but we did, and we worked well together. Who would have ever thought? I mean, she taught me how to cook. She taught me how to build relationships with customers, and that is a true talent.
It is, yeah.
Not everybody can do that, but the servers who can really exceed in this industry.
So for people that are listening or watching, that we send this to, it's like a running gag. Like, so my mom knows and Matt's mom knows.
My grandma might listen.
Your grandma-
to it.
my
I told
grandma,
her,
you know.
trying to explain to an 80-some-year-old lady what a podcast
Like,
is.
watch this. She's
That
like, what?
I just said it's a radio on the internet. That's about all as I could.
She's
get her
like,
figured
oh.
out. But she might listen now. So sorry to interrupt, but she might listen.
So can you help us picture in our minds what LaRue looks like? How old was she, or and just what in your mind's eye, if you picture her now, and you could tell us about it, what does she look like?
She was famous for her laugh. Her laugh just made you want to sit there and tell her your life story. She cooked with heart. I don't know if she followed a recipe. Her food was fantastic, and she literally cared about every single one of her customers. And she would do, specials. She would hear somebody say, "Oh, my mom used to make this." A week and a half later, guess what our special is? It was that. And she would say, "Oh, Tom mentioned it sounded so good, I had to try it." But there were, in this town, there were 10 tables.
Yeah.
The whole restaurant, I think, was 25 by 25.
Yeah.
And we were busy. She opened at 5:30 in the morning. It's a farming community, keep in
Yep.
mind. So they'd start there for coffee. They'd come in for lunch, and
Or dinner. It's called dinner, right?
Or is it supper?
I have no idea.
No, okay,
They came
yeah.
around noon,
Yeah, noon dinner. That's what.
Noon
My
dinner
wife's
and then
from
supper.
Iowa, so it's always noon dinner.
You got it.
and
Yeah,
then
got it.
supper, right?
Yep.
Dinner and
Breakfast,
supper.
dinner, and supper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they would bring their wives back for supper or around the evening time.
Yep. Whatever that's called.
Whatever
So
that's
like when
called.
you're 10, LaRue, is she 30? Is she 50? Is she
At this
70? Is she
I bet she was early 30s.
okay?
I bet she was early 30s at the time.
So remember, like when you were 10, if somebody was in their early 30s, they were old. Mm-hmm. They were real adults.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
like,
Have we made it there yet, Wade? I don't know if we're real adults yet, but
I'm trying to peel it back. It's like, I say people look at me and they're like, man,
what do you think our kids thought
you're 40.
last
So like,
time?
we're older than LaRue now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
A
little bit, yeah,
But
whatever.
me for sure,
Yeah.
maybe.
I
you.
am not talking age. Not
You know.
happening, gentlemen.
So LaRue's like 32, and she's dropping bomb recipes and like meeting her community needs.
Yes.
So at 10, that's a really, I think it's a pretty big impression, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
considering, you have a shirt on right now that says Landing Bar and Grill. So what stuck with you from that experience, 10 going forward before, you were like, well, I'm in high school, I'm going to do this. It was Country Kitchen. What stuck from that experience with her that you stayed in the business, basically?
I loved to hustle. And that's why this whole COVID shutdown has been extremely hard because
Yeah.
I hire people, I surround myself with people who like to run 1,000,000 miles an hour. The faster we're moving, the happier we are. I have people wanting to work. They'll work doubles on Fridays and Saturdays anytime we're busy. And that's who I like to be around, and that's the way I like to work. I like to work hard, and I like to, feel like we're making an impact. And so LaRue hustled. She opened the place, she closed the place, and again, my biggest take from her was probably learning how to make an acquaintance with customers, make a connection with customers
Yeah.
that was meaningful.
Yeah, it is really meaningful. I mean, like my grandpa, like I've said before, probably, was a barber. And it's all these really small things that I always thought was cool to see people do in the moment. Like when you go sit down at LaRue's place or whatever the name was, and you get the coffee the way you want it. And you don't have to ask. And it's funny if it's LaRue's or if it's something personal like that. Even if it's like my grandma went to Hardee's in Dixon, Illinois for years. It was down the block from her house. They knew how she wanted her sausage biscuit or didn't ask. It's really meaningful, powerful stuff. But not everybody can do it.
Not everybody can do it, but for
You can't.
those who can,
It's special.
It has an amazing, you create amazing following. And it's fun to challenge yourself to, the next 50 people figure out their little niche. So it's very fun.
So for you, Matt, you're like, you're a Minnesota guy. And have you been to a country kitchen?
I don't know if I've ever been.
Do you know what it is?
I know what it is. I don't.
Tony,
think I've
any
ever been.
country kitchen? Okay.
It's the Minnesota Happy Chef.
I don't know
right,
if I've ever been.
right? Or like it's the Iowa Perkins or something.
Yeah.
So Country Kitchen, it is a brand. I mean, obviously it's its own brand, but I'm saying it holds a special place. If you are in Iowa or like Southwest Wisconsin, it's like it's a special thing where the coffee and the church and that brand. I have not seen it a lot in Minnesota. So if you have a chance to go to a country kitchen, and in my mind, I don't even see the new logo. I
Yeah.
see the old one from the 90s.
Yes, brown and orange.
Brown and
Ugh.
orange, right.
Ugh.
Yeah, and it was, but like if you wanted to go to like your Cheers or the place that that was like in your hometown, how many freaking country kitchens were in Iowa or like Southwest Wisconsin?
Yeah, when I worked at Ames, we were in the top 5, and I think there was 170 or something. So, the gentleman that I worked for in Marshalltown owned one store. There was a team, 3 gentlemen that owned 9 when I worked for him in Ames. And they even expanded into Missouri as well. So
Yeah, it was like I had never heard of Country Kitchen coming from Illinois, like where I grew up. And so when I went to college in Wisconsin, I had buddies from Wisconsin and Iowa.
I did steal their French toast recipe,
It's delicious. Yeah.
and it's at the Landing. So come on over for
So
French toast.
no copyright infringement there, no like intellectual property violations happening there. What she meant to say was her French toast was inspired.
Yeah, inspired.
Was inspired by Country Kitchen's recipe, which she doesn't even recall at the time. So
Nor had she written it down
no,
anywhere.
nothing.
Oh,
So,
when you make it that many times,
Yeah,
you
you
don't
don't
have
need
to
to.
write it
yeah,
down.
it's just like she was inspired by it, and that's what happened. So anyway, try the Landing Bar and Grill French toast from the mind of Shelly. So my buddies, I've never heard of Country Kitchen,
Yeah.
and they were like, you go out and have 59 beers, and it's like, hey, let's go to Country Kitchen, and I'm like, there's a kitchen. There's a kitchen open at this hour. You're like, yeah, we'll go there and we'll get some eggs and stuff, and all the pretty much like, yeah, all right, well let's call a cab, because obviously
We seated 210 people at the Ames Country Kitchen.
Yeah.
And at Bar Rush. So
Bar Rush.
in Iowa, that was 2:00. We would start.
Packed.
It would start at 12:30. Packed.
yeah.
And hash browns. Oh my gosh, flying out the door.
What do you want?
I couldn't drink coffee for a long time because I smelled coffee in the morning after 39
Yep.
beers and
Yeah.
couldn't.
Right.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I have smelled more coffee than I ever wanted, but now it's a staple in my life. So
So now you're like, what do you want? I want a farmer's skillet.
there.
That's a Country
Exactly.
Kitchen. Anyway, so like anytime I see a skillet, I'm like, you guys rip this off from Country Kitchen, you bastards. So we get the farmer's skillet at like 2:30 in the morning and go down there and eat and walk there because it's the only place that's open. So that's a battleground of like learning how to actually get stuff done in your field. Like that's the
Yes.
best training. That's like getting a freaking master's degree in customer service because the Bar Rush, it ain't the best, the friendliest,
Or the most rational person.
most quiet crowd.
Yes.
And they're packed.
And they're packed.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. And even then, I could see our regulars walk in, and I'm like, that's gonna be 2 farm skillets, a skillet scramble, and
See?
and I knew what they were gonna have. I'm like,
Farm skillet guy. Farm skillet guy. Told you. Anyway, okay, so you do that, and you're in Ames, and you're getting this wonderful education, and then you don't drive a Corvette, which, by the way, it's John, right?
Yeah.
John.
my husband, yes.
Yeah, I think John was full of shit. He knew that you didn't drive the Corvette, and he always knew that. And that was his like icebreaker. Is that your Corvette over there? No, it's not. That's okay. Anyway, so like, can we still keep talking? And then you. Okay, so you get married, and then he gets transferred to, or chooses to move
yeah.
in his
Yeah.
territory.
Yeah.
And this is 93. And so how do you find yourself from that point to getting involved with the Landing Bar and Grill?
Perfect. So, John had a boat. We had a boat at that time. And so we actually rented a boat slip at the Landing
Okay.
when we moved to Minnesota. And that was our introduction to Madison Lake, to the Landing. And so we'd been customers of Mark and Diane's for years. We left to go to North Carolina. In that meantime, I went back to school when I got to Minnesota and graduated from MSU and worked for Cisco Foods,
Yep.
who's a distributor. When we went to North Carolina, I worked for U.S. Foods, another food distributor. So that was excellent education. The Country Kitchen showed me how to do processes and recipes and consistency and scheduling and labor cost. And then I learned the backside of it, being a distributor. And so when I came out of that, I felt very well equipped and well rounded to do it on my own. And so catering business here in Mankato for 4 years. And then we were at the Landing one night. Mark walked up and said, I think Diane and I are going to retire. I'm like, hold that thought. And he said, I think we're going to put it on the market on Monday. I said, hold that thought till Sunday. I'm going to talk to John. We're going to be back.
And so, like, give us some context of the time. Is this 1999, 2005.
So I purchased the landing March 12th of 2019.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Wow. Okay.
So that's the other piece. You go into
Yeah.
this COVID deal. I've only had this
Yeah.
huge resort 1 year by the time we go
Yeah.
into Wonderland.
So prior to buying it in March of 19, you'd been a resident and a patron and had, had your slip there and had probably, met Mark and Diane. I don't know Mark and Diane, I mean, but based on your story.
They did an
it's-
excellent job. They were very visionary for that spot. He started it out, I believe, as a bait shop with some cabins.
Wow.
And then he just kept developing. And then he added a little kitchen. And then he added a bar. And then he added...
Yeah.
So he was very visionary for that property. And we continue just to develop it as we see the niche fit today.
So then you go there and he's like, well, I think we're going to shut this down or put it on the market. And you go, hey, hold on. And so then you go talk to John, and how does that conversation go? And you go, hey, you know that place we keep our boat? I'm like, yeah, I want to buy the whole damn thing. Like, how does that go?
Very leery, shall we say. I had worked in the hospitality industry the whole time I had dated and been married to him. And he's like, any chance you could pick a job where you don't have to work nights and weekends?
No.
Is there any chance that you could consider that before you jump in to
No.
this endeavor? And I said, well, I really like what I'm doing. I love it. And I said, this would be a perfect fit. We're only 3.5 miles from our house. How bad could it be?
Yep.
And so we got the deal done, and here we are today.
So what happens in the meantime? You say, all right, Mark and Diane. I keep wanting to say Jack and Diane.
Yes.
It's a
It
stupid
sound- yeah.
John Cougar Mellencamp in my head.
Yep.
So a little ditty about Mark and Diane. You do the deal. Is it like, here are the keys, don't crash it? Or was there a transition period in March of 19 to where you're starting to, do like a handoff, like a baton?
Yes, I think I started doing the handoff in January or February. I can't remember. I know it was at least 30 days.
Okay. Wow. Which is really relatively pretty.
Yeah.
Is anybody else that's shocked by that? That's pretty short, right? I mean,
Oh, and they absolutely wanted to see their baby succeed. They felt that the landing was really true. I mean, after you work that many hours and put your heart and soul in it, it's very hard not to, see that as a child that
Yeah.
you want to see succeed. So they were very forthcoming and they wanted it to, thrive. They live in the community.
Yeah.
They're very invested to this day.
So question. I dated a girl in high school that lived on Madison Lake, and so I've been she taught me how to sail and stuff. So I've seen that place from whatever 9th, 10th grade all the way to now, and so I've watched what it was and what it's become. What are the pieces? Obviously, the expansion that happened. Was that them? Was that you? What part? I guess that was one of the questions that I wanted to know. Is what part of that was you and what part of that was them?
Absolutely. So they had done the building extension. So when you walk in the front door now and turn left to the bar, that if you turn right, that's where the end of the building was.
Yep.
So everything left is brand new, and it's the bar area, and the kitchen. The kitchen literally went from a 10 by 15 room, and they did some amazing volume out of that kitchen.
I remember that kitchen. I remember the little bar that was right there, and I don't know, maybe you didn't have an alcoholic beverage when I was whatever 18 or something like that. But no, I remember that place, and it's unique to watch what it's become and what you guys have created.
My son washed dishes there before I owned it. He hasn't
Okay.
washed dishes there since I've owned it, but he washed dishes there.
He can't
before I
wash
owned
dishes for his mom. I mean,
Well, if he gets out of line, there's plenty of dishes. Go
Exactly.
send
back
him in
to the
there.
dishes. So that kind of, which I guess I'm not trying to say that 30 days isn't enough time, but I think for somebody that has the experience and is highly skilled and all, you've seen both front ends of how to run what's effectively a hospitality business that covers, because you do not just the landing, but there's other components. There's docking and boats and other things.
Correct. So there's on the one end of the property, there's we call it the condos, and there's basically 3 2-bedroom and 1 1-bedroom condo, and you can rent that by the weekend, by the week, by the month. This summer I have my first customer coming in, and they're going to rent it from Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yeah, so
They love it out there.
That's
They
amazing.
they want to be able to check out from work, and they don't live that far from Madison Lake, but they want somewhere where they can go. Their stuff's right there. They want to have time with their family, and then go back home and not pack everything up and haul it. And so
I got a super cool story. I've never even told you this, and it just popped in my head about the places that you have there to rent.
Are they to the right? If I'm on the lake, are we talking about the stuff that's on the
right by
right
the gas
or the
pump,
left?
correct.
Yep.
If you're
on the right,
facing,
right?
Correct.
yeah.
The right
Yep.
side as you're
Yeah.
facing from
Yep,
the
I
lake.
see it.
So I'm pulling up there in the Ranger, the side by side, and my sister Sarah, who is a few years younger than I am. Anyway, she's visiting for the weekend. This is last February or something now, and maybe January. And so she hadn't been on the ice to check out, basically the town that erupts on, especially last year on Madison Lake.
Especially.
So we're coming through to get on the ice right there, and all of a sudden we see these people all dressed in their Carhartts, and one of the youngerish guys gets down on one knee and is proposing to his, at that time, girlfriend. And we're just pulling up onto it, and we're seeing it. Because they walked right out on the ice road, because the snow was all, 4 feet high on every side. So they're on the ice road, and they're hugging, and moms and dads are high-fiving and all this stuff. And my sister Sarah pulling up. And so I stopped and got out. I'm like, did I just witness what I thought we did? And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, we did. All this. So no joke. I'm like, can I take a picture for you? And they're just beside themselves. Mom's bawling, she's been waiting for this forever. And
Did you intervene and stop this tragic mistake from happening?
no. I didn't tell him all about that.
Did the guy look happy?
He looked very happy.
And he's like, do you want to stay happy? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, don't do this. Get out now. It's early.
She was pretty decked out in Carhartt. It looked pretty good in the Carhartt
seriously.
gear. So I'm like, okay, he's probably finding a good one. But the coolest part is somewhere, I don't know, but they're like, come into the picture. So we have selfies with these people, and I don't even know that. I can't remember their name. But that literally happened right out in front of your place. And I just randomly was pulling out of the ice and saw it all happen and go down. So that was a super cool thing that happened last year.
Well, that's my true north. That's my North Star. If I go ice fishing,
Yeah.
I just look for the lights from the landing.
Yeah.
I know I can drive out there, and I go that way.
Yep.
Perfect.
That's
Yeah, don't go through the narrows. That's
Right.
You're one side or the other, but
right. So
Yep.
we went ice fishing, and it was daytime, and then it got dark, as it does every day. And Matt says to me, just, you don't want to go back the way that you came in. Just drive out from the landing. And I was like, where the hell is that? He's like, it's the place with a lot of lights.
Go that way.
Go
See
that
those
way.
lights?
You
Go
see those
that way.
lights? Drive towards the lights. I was like,
Keep your windows down.
right. Got it. Thank you.
Don't put your seatbelt on yet.
Right. And so, that's what we did. I had not been to the landing for a bit of time. And then when I went back, what I noticed was that there was quite a transformation, I think, since you bought it.
so we added the deck,
Yeah.
which was a huge success, especially with
Awesome.
the way things played out last year. And so we were really fortunate to get on that right away. And
Did you decide that once you knew COVID was a thing, or was that a pre-COVID thing that just happened?
that was a pre-COVID
a good
thing.
question.
Cool.
The previous, originally we had a floating dock.
Whatever happened with that? That was the coolest thing.
It was the coolest thing, and people really enjoyed it. And
Wasn't it a DNR issue?
DNR said it's just too many square feet. There's no variance for business.
It's too much fun.
Yeah,
My kids love that floating dock, by the way.
yes. Well, if we could ever get it back, I will take both the deck and the floating dock.
Oh my gosh.
It was fun.
Just so you
Pack
know.
that. Yeah.
So we would take, yeah. So anyway, I found out, I contested They said, the only thing you can do is contest it. So I said, okay, I'll contest it. I started the process, and they gave me my court date. And so now this is January of 20. I finished my first summer there, 2019, with the floating dock. January of 20, they tell me I will not be able to have a floating dock. And I said, well, then we're building a deck. Funny story for me, maybe not so much my husband John, but I had a conversation with him, and I said, he was traveling, and I said, I just talked to the DNR. I just talked to our lawyer. Court date October of this year. I'm like, we don't have a choice but to build a deck. And he said, we always have choices. And I said, well, I don't feel like we have a choice. He's like, you know what? I said, I've already been out there. I've measured out. I have stakes in. Come over and take a look. And he goes, you're going to do what you want anyway.
Yeah.
So he sounds like he knows you well enough.
Yeah.
But it's at a certain tone of voice, it's just like, well, I'm backing off.
And so he goes, just do it. He goes, I'm going to be out of town for a few days, and we'll talk about it when I get back.
Yeah.
Well, he came back, and I had the dirt work already done. And come to find out, his vision of a deck was, 10 feet on each side of the tiki hut and the tiki bar. And my vision was from the camper all the way to the parking lot. So it went from
So what vision happened?
30 square feet in his mind to 300 square feet.
Yeah.
And I said,
You did the right thing.
I can't grow the grass anyway.
So
People walk all over it. Let's do it. Go big or go home.
Your vision happened.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the square footage, but it's pretty damn big.
It's as big as it can be.
Right. And it's amazing.
The scary thing is I had to call the DNR and get their approval again. And I said, oh, geez. That should be interesting. But they blessed it. They blessed it, and they said, maybe she will stop with this floating deck thing if we just let her have a deck.
So, I don't want to, bury the lead or not talk about the elephant in the room. But, so here's my opening kind of transition question. Is the landing currently open right now for seating, indoors, for food and beverages and all that kind of stuff? I think we know the answer, but
Yikes. Yikes is all I have to say. We are not open until Monday. And on Monday, we'll only be open 15% inside.
Can you be profitable at 15% occupancy?
is it 15
50,
or
50.
or
5 I thought you said
50,
15.
right?
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's no good.
Yeah, and if we can keep, I think we will make it until the deck opens
Okay.
Yeah.
at 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madison Lake and surrounding communities have been extremely supportive, delivery and takeout and
Or they
gift
have 4
cards.
kids and they're out of time and they just need to come see you really
Yes,
quick.
yes.
Exactly.
They're having a craving.
Yeah, it's just like kids are freaking out. It's like, screw this. I'm just calling there. And
I need these chicken wings, GD.
I need the 10 minutes that it takes me from my house to there and back to just sit in silence for a while.
Exactly. So we were fortunate that we had that deck. When we found out that we were going to get closed down in, March, I thought, okay, couple months, right?
Yeah.
And then there were all kinds of parameters to be outside. And I couldn't envision or fathom what it was. It didn't make any sense to me. I'll follow along if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, help me out.
Mm-hmm.
One of my concerns is that a lot of the rules that were being made were made for Metropolitan, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yep.
And the smaller rural communities, I have 25 people that it's the only food they get.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They don't drive anymore. They don't go into Mankato to go get something. Or they were being so cautious with COVID that wasn't an option. And the only place they were getting their food was from us. And I'm like, I didn't think it was managed for the entire state. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe when Iowa did it, they did it by county.
Did,
the governor gave direction to the counties, some guidelines, and said, manage it.
Yeah.
accordingly, manage it for your county. And I think that would have been, I would think that would have been successful
Yep.
in
Well,
Minnesota as well.
I think it would have too. And when this whole thing hit, and I'm not sure if we talked about it or not in like any previous podcasts, but I think what happened was like we felt more of a metropolitan impact because like when this thing hit New York City, for example, first it was like Italy was in the news, and then it came to New York, and then you got like Governor Cuomo was on the TV every day giving like a press conference. Well, Mankato was not Manhattan, but we got treated like Mankato or the area was Manhattan. And so I think for Iowa to go like county, like Ames, Iowa City, Des Moines, Rapid, Cedar Falls, Mankato, Rochester, all these areas, they're very different than say Duluth or like Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Right.
But we got treated the same way. I'm not saying I disagree with what they did. I think they used a really wide net to catch tuna, and they end up killing a bunch of dolphins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest question that I had with the whole thing, and this is not meant to be offensive at all, and I don't think it's offensive, and some people have taken offense to it, but to do anything and not ask at what cost, to me, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Let's shut this, or let's do this, or let's open up, or whatever. It's like, okay, we got to figure out the benefit, and you got to understand the cost and everything in life, whether it's buying a vehicle, having a child, creating a business. Everybody that's successful is asked, at what cost? We're going to build the deck. At what cost? If the cost is here, but our increase in revenue is up here,
Then let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so that's not to say that what they did is wrong or right. I don't know, because hindsight will be a lot easier, but that's what I don't hear anybody asking is that question is at what cost? We're going to do this, but at what cost? If they can explain to me the cost and the benefit, maybe. But to me, there's nobody asking that question. That's what I'm fearful about is no one asks that.
Well, man, yeah.
And there's going to be impact from this in the restaurant industry, not only from those restaurants that we've lost permanently, but to the supply chain.
Yeah.
The restaurant business is very much volume based.
Yeah.
You don't have thick margins.
We don't.
No.
And so we can do things like trim our menu line to make, to keep in a few products.
Yeah.
And try and focus the majority of our sales on those versus keeping this wide selection available that we can't maintain because we don't know where our numbers are going to be. There's nothing to base it on.
Which as a consumer, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
If, like it's always a weird thing when you go to a restaurant and you're thinking, so you guys make all this shit?
Yeah.
Right.
Like I can get pizza
Yeah.
and a lobster and like, chicken wings all at the same place. Like, is there anything you don't do? So for you to have the trimmed down menu, I like that because I'm stupid. And it makes the choices
It just means you're simple.
right
Okay.
smaller. I'm like, I want that. Thank you. So from Cisco to US Foods, you get the other side of how this food gets funneled to restaurants in rural areas. Has that changed while you're trying to manage through being open and closed and indoor seating and outdoor seating? And how did you manage that? Because I suppose it's probably really varied quite a bit, and you're buying a lot of stuff one month and less later. So how did you do that?
That was the trickiest part, and unfortunately, a lot of times when the governor had made his announcements, they were after the cut time for our order to go in.
Yeah.
Every single time he closed us down, I had a truck arriving the next morning
Right.
with a full order of food on it that I can't send back.
Yep.
And so if it's a freezer item, yeah, it's going to take you a little longer to go through it. We all get that. What about lettuce? What about eggs?
What about
cheese?
perishables?
All of that.
Onions, tomatoes, all of that stuff.
And our menu is trending more and more to the fresh versus
Right.
a frozen. And so as we trim it, we keep things in mind that we can have a shelf life on. And we're not afraid anymore to say, I'm sorry, we're out of this. We'll have it back in on Tuesday. And roasted chicken, we're just running on the weekends. The the price to bring in a smaller amount doesn't allow us to sell it at the same price we'd like to. So in order to do that, we have to focus it and get all those sales in 3 days to manage our cost. I don't want to raise the price to my customers unless I absolutely have to. There was never any, the cost of disposables. We went from a menu that was priced out to serve inside on plates with silverware that we could wash and reuse. The cost of disposables were thought about, but we never planned the whole menu to go out in disposables.
Yeah.
And those were costs that we just had to eat.
It's interesting. So, like, if you've tried to go out and, which I'm speaking from a place of total ignorance, but if you tried to buy food from establishments during some varied indoor-outdoor seating thing, if you went to go pick up food, when I got home, I thought, okay, so every ketchup is its own thing.
Twice the cost.
So keep adding it up in your mind. Think about every meal you have. If you have kids, fork, spoon, knife, napkin, plates, coverage, every ketchup, every mustard, every condiment.
Yep.
And so you get this big bag of stuff or multiple bags, and you're like, what do we order? But that's what you were like what you were required to do. And so you have to make a choice.
And we had to up our game.
Right.
We had to bring in disposable containers that were vented and that people could microwave in.
Yeah.
And the way we placed our sandwiches, anything that was grilled, like a patty melt or our famous Monte Cristo or whatever, we had to change the way we put it in there so one side wouldn't be soggy when it arrived.
Yeah. Which that Monte is awesome, by the way. And that's
Thank
what I
you.
get when I go there. It's freaking awesome.
We switched to a delivery fry. Yeah.
You're just going to say delivery fry.
Yeah.
You asked me last time I was there, you said, let me know what the fries are like because we changed to some other thing. And I think that's maybe how this whole thing sparked. But so tell me what the difference is between I'm going to eat it there fry and the one that I took home and ate with my kids fry, which it was better, by the way. It was
Both are delicious.
Yeah, they were very good.
And so there's, the industry, having worked for U.S. Foods and Cisco, I will tell you that there are literally 110 different kinds of French fries or fried potato products.
Oh, my
I
God.
guess there's like 20, maybe.
Right.
The max.
We need to
No,
do like a
there's-
French fry episode.
And so,
Looks like you got to come back.
Yeah.
yeah, Simplot does, and Lamb Weston all do research because they are potato experts. They grow them, they package them, they come up with all the ways and what exactly they did. It's a thicker fry, so it holds the heat. And then how it is, basically there's a starch coating on it, which potatoes are a starch, so there's a potato coating on it that helps hold that heat in and resists the moisture. But it's got to be in a vented container.
Yeah, to let the heat out.
Right. So those foam boxes, those are gone.
Yep.
Not because they're, a third of the cost.
Yep.
So here we go. What do we have to do to get a better product to you? The sandwiches we're developing, the pot roast sandwich, the Winchester turkey sandwich, those are on a bun that will absorb moisture, if you will, the juice of the product when you're making it, but doesn't get soggy. It still has a
Yeah.
crust on the outside that allows you to not pick it up and go, yuck, what is this? So we've learned a lot about delivery, takeout.
So this, like the last 2 minutes for me, are the most intensely fascinating part of what we've talked about the last whatever it is. To me, that's amazing. That I want to say holy S, which I'm trying to stop swearing as much as I can in the new year.
Because Grandma Sue's going to listen to this.
But seriously,
I can always bleep it out too.
and so like Tony in the booth's like, I can always bleep out when I say so, and what I'm saying is there's a reason why like Heinz ketchup is just sold 80-90% more than like Hunt's or like gourmet whatever, or like why Grey Poupon is this made up brand from Indiana that people just love. So So you're doing all of this during a pandemic and figuring out how to keep your buns crispier and your fries hotter, and you can't even have people in your like effing restaurant.
Right. And yet we are legitimately scrambling on trying to figure out how, how we can do it better, how we can retain our customers. How do we keep the lights on? How do we keep the doors open? So it's,
in your opinion, what are some of the more creative things that you've done? The deck was one.
The deck was a lifesaver. It actually, it gave us a distinct advantage over some other places that, due to their location, who probably had a distinct advantage over me prior to, had to set up their outdoor tables in parking lots or in the lawn. But again, all at additional cost.
Yep.
People that put up tents,
Portable ice houses.
Yeah.
Like, I saw some of that, or they'd like get the clam ice houses and put those out when it started getting cold.
So when
the funny thing is we tried to do that.
Yeah.
And if it was on our property, they wouldn't allow it. So it has to be
They had to back out?
It has to be 4 inches onto the ice. And we've had late ice.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you killing me?
Yeah.
We have outdoor dining available, but if you can live through it.
Oh my god.
Unbelievable. So I had no idea. So when the deck was completed and done, when did it open?
Oh my gosh, they did a fabulous job. I think it was like 4 weeks from the time. Of course, me on the phone in tears saying, "Can you please get a drawing done? Can you please fit this in?"
Right. As fast as possible.
Yeah, and I think so tears might have expedited the process, but we were open.
It usually does.
We were open by the time the docks were in, and we had success with bands,
Yeah.
and the bands were huge. Even though I had people calling in and making complaints to the health department, anticipating that we were not going to be able to follow the guidelines, and having all kinds of fancy ideas about how we were going to mess up. But my staff will tell you that the guidelines are very much at the forefront of every decision we made. And so it's been an interesting, from being called in for things we're not, violations that we're not making, to
Wow.
and some people taking this so seriously that they legitimately don't want to get out of their car, which we're fine with. We're totally fine with. We'll bring it out to you.
Yep.
And they just want to hand it over, and that's completely fine. Whatever makes you happy, we appreciate your business, however it comes. But
Yeah, and it's hard, to not go there to a place where you're making judgments, even if you're not, and you're not trying to say, hey, if this is how you're interpreting it or how you feel about it, that's okay. No big deal. But also have some kind of tempered measure of let's keep living and keep doing things while lowering risk, right? I don't want this mask on right now, but I have it on. I take a sip of my beverage, I put it back on, and it's hot as hell in here. So I'm trying to get some space, but I also have it on. But I don't want to judge somebody for, slipping a bill through a window as they get their money and then leave.
right, maybe their health situation is such
Right.
that, and you know what, if that's what makes them feel comfortable, we were willing to be however it was. The irony, I believe, came at that the perception was if we don't have restaurants open, that people will not gather and eat and drink together. I know they're more, you ask why Menards and Home Depot, of all the home projects that were done
Yep.
so that they could have guests in their home.
Yep.
Come
Yep.
on now, people.
Yeah.
People are meeting.
Yep.
And at some point, enough of us are going to have had COVID that we're going to need somewhere to go.
COVID, vaccines, and just time passing, and this, this thing kind of going around. And if we're trying to buy time, I get the whole concept of buying time and delaying spread and all that. I'm not. It makes perfect sense to me, right? It's let's just, people are going to get this as they do, and let's just have the resources to handle it. In the meantime, I guess the hard part for me is how much of our lifestyle, of our society, of our communities, how much of that is going to fall by the wayside. And a recent study came out, I think I just heard it yesterday morning. There's a coalition, which I'm sure you're well aware of. Half of the restaurant/bars, think that they'll be closed. That's 50%, half think they're going to close in the next 3 months. And so places like the Landing and places that are, to me, are more of, they are really community centers. Mm-hmm. It's not a bar, it's not a grill, it's a gathering place. There's birthdays and people go there after funerals and weddings, and it's a community place. Kids are there, grandparents, parents, and so on. It's not just a bar or it's not just a restaurant. Half those places could be closed in 3 months. And so that's the best that we got. That's the best option.
And yet we can't, some of the comments that came out early when we closed down the first time in the spring were, I can't believe, every restaurant should have, 3 months worth of money on hand. And I said, well, yeah, I'll be more than willing to have 3 months worth of money on hand. But do you know what a hamburger is going to cost you?
Right, exactly.
So, again, it's based on volume. And so.
And when costs change, that 3 months could go down to
exactly
25 days pretty quick of
right.
cash reserve, because now all of a sudden your chicken wings, I'm going to quote this wrong, but instead of $30 a box, they're $80 a box or something like that.
Absolutely. And we've had trouble getting all kinds of things throughout the chain. And it wasn't our supplier's fault. It was, the trucks couldn't get to point A to point B. I mean, this rolled down and affected so many different pieces of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. It's been quite a challenge. Simple things like cleaning products, bleach or gloves. When we first started buying the gloves that we wear in the back of the house, again, $30 a case.
Yep.
I looked today; they're over $200 a case.
Oh, and by the way, though, there's no such thing as price gouging because people are watching that.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Well, I just want to give a shout out, to the Landing Bar and Grill. I was there when I think you guys reopened on the deck. And it was probably like late April, early May, somewhere around there. My wife was furloughed, because of COVID-19, and she was going back to work after furlough, after like 6 weeks of being laid off. And I said, well, let's go out, and we took our little fun car, and we drove to the Landing, and had lunch and all that kind of stuff. It was like the first or second day that the deck was reopened, and the staff there was on point. I mean, everything followed to the T, the cleaning and all of the stuff, and the here's this, and the napkins, and the hand sanitizer, and the masks, and they were really on it. And we had such a fantastic time, not because it was it just was normal. We felt like, God, this feels great. Mm-hmm. We're here, we're safe, we're outside, this deck's amazing. We sat from the tiki bar, we're 2 tables out. It was a beautiful day. It felt normal. It felt great to be there. But it was also May and not February, and it wasn't freezing. So how do we combat that?
Right.
You can't sit your ass outside and you'll freeze.
Unless you have your Carhartt gear.
Right. And a clam or something.
Yeah.
And those are limited few, because again, they're gonna hang out in their ice house. If you have those folks interested in coming in there, and they do, and they're great, and we're gonna try and figure out a way to deliver to ice houses this winter.
I was just gonna ask that. So how are you gonna identify which one's mine? So I just can be hey, I'm gonna turn the red light on the top.
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
Bring the pizza there.
Exactly. Your cell phone is going to be required, and for those that can figure out how to drop a pin,
sweet,
we're gonna have you drop a pin. And then I think what we'll do is, because we have a cell phone that's dedicated just to the landing as a second line for delivery calls and whatnot. And so, we can follow that out, and we can get there, and we can call you when we think we're close. And I have a lot, and we just bought a used snowmobile to help with that. So I haven't quite figured out where the food is going to go. But I have a lot of volunteers to drive it.
I had a funny story. So I was, this is now pre-COVID. This is like January when like we didn't even think the world was going to change. And I was at a business deal in Atlanta, and there was this gal who is about our age, and she works at this investment company, whatever. But she's asking like, "Where are you from?" And I'm telling her, "Well, I'm from Minnesota. We eat goulash and stuff." And so she's like kind of laughing at me, and I said something about an ice house, and she's like, "What's an ice house?" I'm like, "Well, you live in New York, right? In that apartment that you have, like imagine that apartment, but it has wheels on it, and we put it on a sheet of ice
on a frozen
the
lake."
And she's asking me all these questions, and she's like laughing. I'm like, "No joke." I'm showing her pictures of it, and then I got the little kids holding the sunny and all that. And then I'm like, "Well, then she goes, "Well, what do you do about like food and stuff, whatever?" I'm like, "Oh, sometimes I just have it delivered." And she's like, "You're joking." I'm like, "Yeah, no joke. You can just call them up, and they say, the blue one right over there." It's like, okay, and they come running up, and they bring you whatever you ordered. I'm like, there's nothing more Minnesotan than getting beer and pizza delivered to your ice house in the
On a frozen lake.
On a frozen lake.
Yeah,
It's like,
there is.
It's just amazing. It's so much fun.
So if the ice ever gets thick enough on Madison Lake,
I was out there. I was out there today just to check it, and it's getting there. The middle of the lake that was open.
Yeah.
I can't say for probably liability reasons how thick it was, but we're not too far away.
good.
Getting close.
That's good news.
Yeah.
That's good news because we've had some great days where we could actually, go out and learn where some of these places are, drop off a menu, and say, okay, we're dropping a pin.
Yep, that's
what name do you
exactly-
want on this? What phone number do you want on this? So.
Which I think is so much fun. It's brilliant. And there are other parts of the country that are figuring out how to work around kind of restrictions as they get more intense and as they lessen. But we have some unique challenges because of how cold it is here. So hopefully we can turn those into positives and have food delivered and have a good time, and people can stay open and do all that stuff. I know it's a highly contested kind of hot topic to talk about this.
It is, and I, before Wednesday, I would have been much more vocal. I think I'm very glad that we get to open 50% on Monday. I understand where some of the rules come from, but we're not kindergartners. Please allow us to use some judgment.
Yeah.
Because now, we've been locked up so long. People are like, "Yeah, what do you need me to do? We'll do it.
Yep.
We'll follow the rules. What do you want? We just want to be out. We want to be normal." And so, people are ready.
Which is a great way to say it too, because I confess I take COVID-19 very seriously. I have a wife who's in the healthcare field. We've had people be exposed to it. I've had some folks that are very close to me pass away from COVID-19 related complications. Read into that phrase however you want. But if somebody has some other things going on health-wise and they get COVID-19, let's just say that their odds decrease of surviving. I take it very seriously, but not to the point of where I feel like I'm cutting my own nose off.
Right.
And how do we balance the two? It's not a mockery. It's not some sideways thing of, I'd like to go and get a burger. I like to do those kinds of things. And I think we can do it safely. And the reason for this, there's a difference between a place, in my opinion, that's open till 2:30 in the morning, where people are kind of, in each other's faces and versus getting a burger and a few beers and hanging out with your family or your friends.
Yep.
Correct.
There's a huge difference.
Age demographic,
Risk.
what's going on, all of it. Yep, risk.
Well, and I think we could have implemented plexiglass, across the center of the table if it was more than one family. I think that, plexiglass worked every other place.
They have in other countries.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think there were things that could have been done. From what I've heard from the Minnesota hospitality industry or the group, they were not responsive to whatever they were bringing as options. They were just way more comfortable with keeping it on a lockdown. And again, I'll come back to, I think it was the state of Minnesota was managed like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I believe that they probably needed those things in Minneapolis and St. Paul to keep everybody safe.
Just based on the density, because there's so many
Correct.
more people, right? I
Yep.
mean, how many people live in kind of that radius or geographic area where you serve your customers, right? So you're 20 miles,
Yeah, I think
10 miles?
I think I don't.
Smaller,
Do you know
5?
what that number is?
I don't know.
right? It's like if we have to guess, if it's a 5-mile radius or 10-mile radius, including the lake when it's frozen, how many
Double
people?
it.
Right, you know, like
Yeah.
how many people is that? Is it
Yeah.
10,000 tops, 5,000, 2,000? So it's not even the same as a normal like tenant building in downtown New York.
Correct.
Right.
It's a whole area.
Or even downtown Minneapolis.
It just was not managed well, and it's not a criticism. It's more of an observation that let people do what they're going to do and then leave them alone to figure that part out, which is
Yeah.
not some like veiled Republican, Democrat kind of political thing.
Which
It's just,
unfortunately it's been created to be one
but
or
it's
the
made
other.
this thing
It's
where
not.
I'm like, so you mean to tell me that somebody that has been in the restaurant industry since they were 10 and worked for the two of the biggest, I think, food distributors in the nation, Cisco, U.S. Foods,
Correct.
probably top 2, right?
Yep.
And then run her own frickin' business, cannot figure out how to serve roughly 30 people every hour or so in a
Correct.
safe way. That doesn't make sense to me.
With
that
a
it's-
deck that's 300 square feet or
right,
whatever.
that's legislated from a capital. They don't know your business like you do.
Well, and even the people that would start to congregate around the tiki bar, I'd be like, everybody, elbows out. If you're touching anyone, step back.
You know,
And people were like, oh yeah, thanks, or they'd they'd give me a hard time, which is fine. But then I was like, a month into it, all I had to do is walk by and say elbows, and everybody's like, take a step back, just
Yeah.
it.
Here she
and-
comes. But
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
spread
yeah,
out.
spread out. Yeah,
which, maybe that's the whole point, right? They're like, well, people get there and they hang out and they start to congregate and the walls break down. And this is how this virus keeps being perpetuated. But I think there's a way to manage it.
Yeah.
Because other places have, and they don't have the same kind of spread that we do. And not all their stuff is shut down. Like they can still go get a burger or they can go get a bowl of pho. And they're not getting as sick as we are, at least as many. And it's relative to population.
Yeah.
correct.
So they figured it out, but our solution, it was like they used a sledgehammer to pound in a tack. I'm not trying to say COVID-19 is a tack at all. It's a huge issue. It's the scariest thing I've ever been involved with my entire life. But I think we will have huge ramifications for many years, and stuff is just not going to reopen, not because just because it's not there anymore. The owners have left. It's boarded up. It's done.
And you've taken some free will or some choice out of it, and you're not going to find as many people that are willing to take chances on owning their
start
own
a
business,
business.
whatever kind of business that is, and been impacted. And I've been caught up in the restaurant industry, and I know there's other things that are impacted as well. But it's like, wow, what next? If they, wow.
Which, I have shared, criticism about this stuff going political and kind of getting into this space where I thought this is not related to that. But it's kind of hard for it not to be somewhat related to it. If we're talking about freedom of choice and freedom of speech and entrepreneurship
Freedom
and
of
being
thought, just
creative,
like our
freedom
last-
of thought and the whole
last
thing.
episode.
If you're being told what to do, I'm not saying it's anti-American, but it's just not really in our DNA. I mean, we broke the West open. We flew to the moon. We built great things.
The country was built on rugged individualism.
That's kinda how we
what
do
was
it, right?
Created by.
And
And you think about it, it's by definition the people that left their homeland in a trunk that weighed
Right.
150 pounds and they had 6 kids and they hopped on a boat with just enough money to get here. you have to be an insanely individualistic and determined person to make that work.
I just feel like that's in our backbone, our DNA. And that's not some, like I said before, some veiled Republican, Democrat thing.
No.
It's not, it's like, if you're going to mandate stuff from the top down, I get it. There needs to be some universal approach to things and some uniformity and all the reasons for like federalism and all that stuff. But we're not the same country everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I get the idea of top-down management. I really do. I really, really, really do. But Manhattan, Mankato, not the same place. You can't use the same approach. Mm-hmm. So we talked about this before we started recording. There's a restaurant right now that's kind of like holding the torch.
Correct.
And I don't know the name of it, but I could probably look it up now. Female business owner, she is really stepped up, and she's
fighting the fight. I'm
she
proud
is.
of her.
I mean, she's taking a risk.
A big risk.
Huge.
Yeah.
5-year ban on liquor license. 60 months is what the threat is.
Which is again an overreaction. When they have not been policing home parties, and different gatherings, and I don't expect them to. Again, I don't think that's somewhere they should go. I think they should just allow us to enforce their guidelines instead of being so rule specific. Let's give some guidelines, enough to make people feel safe, and let's use good hygiene and good sanitation practices, and let's learn from this, but let's get the bigger picture out on how we're going to develop the industry into the next step. I worked in healthcare for about 10 years, and you're dealing with a population that has weakened immune systems and different things. And I learned a ton there about, sanitation and the processes and how much can go into the practice and all those types of things. And, you bring that out into the industry I have now, and there's room to grow the restaurant industry, but I don't know if that development has been made even in this situation. So
so I did look it up, and so it's the Alibi Drinkery co-owner Lisa Monet Zarza argued that Walls' indoor dining ban was unconstitutional and counted as, quote, discrimination against restaurants and staff. And she's quoted as saying, "We are not asking for special treatment," she said. "We are asking for fair treatment." And I agree with that. Mm-hmm. But
it is discriminatory.
It seems
because
to,
they are picking businesses over other businesses to shut down or open.
Right. So based on if you want, like you said earlier, if you want to go to, I don't know, pick a business that's essential and open, then you can go. But so what happens if there's an outbreak? So which is kind of like, this is the fear factor, kind of devil's advocate. So what if there's 100 people are linked to a particular tavern to have COVID, in which this has happened.
Right.
Then they just shut it down.
Or like
just boom, done.
Yep. This has happened in weddings. This has happened earlier on. It was down in Martin County, and they had like one wedding.
Yep.
350 or 400 people are there, and they linked same like you had said, 50 or 100 people from that gathering alone. So I don't know. We'll see. It'd be really interesting to find out how that goes.
Well, as of the easing of restrictions, does Miss Monet Zarza, does she still have the same issues on her hands? And apparently she does. I know. Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, sued that restaurant, because they have their viewpoint that they're breaking the law and it's, that it's bad to be open. I'm not saying it has to be one or the other. Where can we find some common ground to make it work? Mm-hmm. But also not be totally full of crap, because let's face it, at 50%, if you're operating at 50%, does that number work?
Not very well.
No, it doesn't work well, right? It's like a
Back to the
Band-Aid.
volume. We're back to the volume scenario.
Right. You know, so you're like the little Dutch boy with your finger in the dam, and, you know, you're hoping for spring because that deck will come back and save you.
Right.
So there's got to be somewhere in the middle where you can meet between closed and then wide open.
And there's got to be common sense in there. I mean, there's a friend of mine that owns a salon, not in Mankato, but owns a salon, and she's telling me about we're only supposed to open up to X amount capacity.
Yeah.
And she goes, if you take the square footage and divide that out, we're set. We have one chair open. Mm-hmm. Like, we are on 8 chairs in here. Like, it's for some the way all of it's set up. She goes, we're only supposed to have 1 or 2 chairs. Like, then we should just shut the door and be done.
Right.
So
Yeah.
she told me, she's like, screw it. Like, we're just going to, hopefully no one notices or complains, but we opened up to what capacity meant for break even. And they did that. And they haven't had an issue. And to your point, but they're not in the limelight.
They're not, yeah.
You know, you're not going to get your hair cut and being like, whoa, there's a lot of people, you know, elbows, everybody elbows, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's even a more interesting issue is what's the hammer's coming down here, but not over here, and one's in the limelight, one's not. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it just, like you had said, let's do stuff that makes sense.
And I've seen the studies too. Like, you know, the scientists come out and, you know, the epidemiologists and virologists do all their studies, and they show somebody sitting at one spot in the restaurant, and they show how it spreads and this many people in this area.
Mm-hmm.
I get the science behind it. I'm not refuting that at all. I get it. I see it. I think the reports are valid. It's not, you know, I'm going to punch myself for even saying this. It's not fake news.
I thought you were going to say like crazy commies
Right.
or something like that.
It's not like fake news. Like I get the science. Like if this dude's in the corner or this gal's in the corner and she's coughing or
and,
sneezing, I get how like the germs go around, right?
Yep.
But
That doesn't happen in a box store.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Give me a break.
Right. Right. Like didn't we already know that?
Yeah, you're pulling up to get
Right.
your whatever smoke detector at Menards, and the
Right.
guy right before you was touching everything and coughing all over.
You got
stuff.
it.
You know, yeah. Well, it's like even the thing of you have people come in, you take their temperature. Yeah, you have to invest into that, and you have extra staff and stuff. But
Yeah.
like that's a mitigating factor. What are mitigating factors that we can utilize that make sense, that can keep businesses at a profitable level or even a break-even level?
To keep them open until we get through this crap.
I
Yes.
can't speak for you, but if you could just break even, call it good, and then
Yes.
start over,
And then get here in the spring. And,
you know, in June or something. I mean, hopefully it's not till June. Oh Lord, but
We have a countdown calendar till the deck opens, and we're using about that Easter weekend because
Yeah.
you know
Right.
Yep, that's
a lot of times
typically it.
Easter's a good go. So
Good
we have
time
a
to
countdown on
socially
there.
distanced party.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
socially distanced party.
Well, everything Shelly said about like taking precautions, having dividers, all these things you can do to stay open. I'm not trying to like dump on the idea, but it's not rocket science, Shelly. Like it's common sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
and being diligent to have the cleaning
Yeah.
in place.
Well,
I
even-
think we can.
I even thought of the idea. It's like, okay, well, you can, let's say you have a restaurant and you can take, from a regulatory standpoint, you conclusively find that there have been 35 people that have contracted COVID that have all come back from this point.
Yeah.
Just put that on the door that says 35 people have gotten COVID from this, you know, okay, well then educated people can make a decision and say, well, if that restaurant had 56 people that had that go on and this restaurant had 2, then they're doing something right. It's education. I mean, that might not be the thing you want to have on the door that says, hey, these people
No,
are
but
sick.
But how do you know they
it's-
didn't get it at a grocery store or
That's
wherever?
Exactly.
That's exactly right. That's
Exactly. That's where I was going to go
And
too.
you're not closing them down. So allow those who want to go out to go out. Let's work
Yeah.
with some guidelines, and
Yep.
those that feel more comfortable staying at home, I'll still deliver.
Man.
And you know, if you want to just pull up to a Hy-Vee or Cub or whoever has the delivery to your car, and that's what you're comfortable doing,
That's what we do at my house.
rock on.
Hit
Target
the
drop
button.
up. Yeah,
the
target pickup.
Hatch goes up. My wife, they put it in. We leave. Or that's it.
Yeah.
But so like this is the most social interaction I have pretty much every week.
Yep.
With this mask on, I come here and hang out, and we talk smart, and like
Yep.
we know what the hell's going on. But you know the truth is, if you have some informed decision making, then you can pick. If it's informed, great. If if it's your decision, then you're making the call. If we need to mitigate risk because of
Community spread or whatever.
people go like, hey, we're all going here, but don't tell me that like the hockey parties aren't happening at people's houses. The people aren't still getting like together.
They are.
And they got 50, they have 50 people at their house, and then
I'm just bummed I'm not invited.
Right.
Because I have a lot of free time on my hands right now.
exactly.
So.
Then you go to work and you're like, I don't know where I got COVID. And you're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, I just had 30 people from the softball team at my house for the annual awards dinner. I can't imagine where I got this. Or they just flat out lie. Have you been at any large gatherings lately, John? You're like,
Large? No.
No.
What's large?
What's large? Well, Jane Doe, no, I can't imagine where this happened.
No.
So I hope we get there soon. Since our last podcast, my wife got the vaccine.
Yeah, mine too.
So your wife got a vaccine, my wife got a vaccine. And I hope we get back there.
I just want to do the podcast without a mask on.
So do
That's
I.
my only goal.
Yeah.
That's all I want to do. If
I
I can
know.
just do this for the next 52 weeks, that'd be cool.
So I don't know if there's anything else. If you want to talk about the landing, what you have going on,
What do
any
you got for
promotions, specials, what do you have
promos
going
and
on?
stuff like that?
Awesome. We're really looking forward to getting back to like our prime rib on Saturdays. I think we're gonna run walleye our first night because stuff like walleye and don't travel well in a to-go container.
Or people that can't catch them in the lake, like myself. It's very easy to pretend you caught it and just go over there.
If I can't catch it, I want to eat it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're very excited to get back to that piece of it, and we're more than willing to do the reservations and make people as comfortable as they can be. So we're very excited for that. Just even to, I miss seeing people in the restaurant enjoying themselves, and being able to wave and say hello to their neighbors and those type of things. So I'm very excited to see that. So we're we are going to try to work on some items that we're looking to add to the summer menu. We'll try some of those now that we're open and get some input to see what we're going to put on for the summer and what don't make the cut. We always have things we have a couple new sandwiches that have made the cut. One is the Winchester turkey. It has a tomato chutney. It has turkey and lettuce and tomato and avocado and a lemon mayo that is out of this world. And so we're going to try and do some things like that. We always have things like lasagna and meatloaf and beef commercials and comfort food. We just made a fresh batch of chili today, wild rice soup. We try and mix it up. We have the burgers and chicken wings, all those things to keep it easy. But then we try, for those people that come in a couple times a week, we try and have some homemade dishes. Friday's tater tot casserole. So.
Are you hungry, Tony? Matt? I mean, like seriously,
Yeah. I might have to make a phone call.
I'm serious.
And stop
I'm
on the way
freaking
home.
starving right now. No. So just we don't have to close now or anything, but so my question is, if I can get one more question in before whatever happens next. The way you talk about food and your attention to food and how you talked about starch on starch and like some other. So are you more of a food person? Is that where your passion is? Or are you more of a business person? Like, are you a business person that loves food or a food person that happens to have a business? Which one is it? Because you probably know where I'm going with this, but I think I know where you are, but I want to hear what you say.
I would absolutely say that I am a food person.
Yeah.
I have the benefit of owning a restaurant.
Yeah.
As well, and through the years of all the different, people that I have worked for, developing staff and training and creating a dining experience is what our goal is.
Yeah.
We don't want to just, hey, take your seat. Here's your menu. What do you need? Can I get you anything else? We can take the visual or verbal hints if you're in a hurry, but if you're not, how would you like to try this wine with that dish? How would you like to try our new salad with pomegranate seeds? How would you like,
Yeah.
And then, I told all my servers, I'm not going to let them leave the table until they get 3 no's. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, once you've tried to upsell or sell or, talk about 3 new things, once they tell you no 3 times, then you're welcome to go. But until then, just stick there and stick in there and see what they don't know we have.
Yeah.
So bringing all that together, and the summer is absolutely my favorite time because we get to do all this outside and in sun and whatever the Minnesota weather has to offer.
And you're still doing the boat rentals too, right?
Yeah, we partnered with a company called Your Boat Club, and they have locations all over Minnesota. And if you're a member with them, you can go to any of their locations and rent a boat.
Okay.
So in southern Minnesota, we have 4 pontoons, and you can sign up as a guest or a member, and you can do a half-day rental or a whole rental. And what a lot of those customers that were Your Boat Club members found out is that they could come in for an afternoon rental, rent a condo, stay overnight, go out for a morning rental, almost double up on their experience, and then they still had the deck to come and dine and cocktail, and they didn't have to worry about driving home.
Yep.
And that's been a very successful partnership. We're also going to, to feature. We have boat slips, and they're full. Once you get a boat slip, nobody really wants to give it up. So
I'm totally for people with boat slips because
pretty much keep it.
It frees up the actual boat access and all the people trying to back up and jackknife their trailers. So.
Yes.
And they're fairly reasonable. Like I was looking at it one time. I think I was talking to you whatever a year or 2 ago, and they're relatively reasonable for what I thought they were going to be.
Yep,
to not have to pull a trailer and
$1,650
For the season?
We put your lift in. You get to drive in and out. We have fuel on site. You don't even have to carry gas down the dock if you don't want to.
pull up with a beach bag, put the family on the pontoon, and you take off for the day.
Yep.
Yep.
And we'll, if you want to place an order, pull up to the dock. We'll call you when it's ready. Pull up to the dock. We'll hand it over. You can go eat in your boat.
We did that a lot with just because of the COVID stuff and our new little now 5-month-old. We did that a ton where we just pull up, put the sea legs down, and sit there, and then they'd run out, and that was like our biggest social thing that we did for a while.
Yeah,
is say hi to whoever server ran it out, but that worked awesome.
And we've started booking our bands. We do bands on Friday nights and Sunday afternoons, and we'll see how COVID goes. We've always kind of stayed away from Saturdays because it's the small town fest around southern Minnesota, and so we've kind of stayed away from that. So if they don't do those this year, we'll probably add some Saturday night bands as well. People pull up and they park their boat on the water. They talk to their friends in the next pontoon boat. They sit on the deck, or we even extend it into the parking lot so that we can just keep everybody spaced out and all that good stuff. So we're very excited about the deck opening.
I can tell.
Post-COVID.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean,
opportunity.
I'm excited about having the Winchester turkey myself. So hopefully, I think that made the cut. Like you said earlier, I'm gonna have that.
I did.
So for those of you who are listening and don't know where you are at? Because we talked about Madison Lake, but tell us a little bit more about how they can find you.
Sure. So Highway 60 runs through Madison Lake. Main Street. If you turn on Main Street and hit the lake, you'll run right into our parking lot.
Yep.
And so we'd love to see you. Currently we're open 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. Next Monday we're going to go back to regular winter hours, which would be 8 a.m. So we're open for breakfast. We serve breakfast all day, and then we'll close at 10 o'clock. When I believe our curfew time is 10. If it's earlier than that, we'll close earlier.
Do you do off sale?
We have off sale, and we do deliver. And again, we're looking forward to the ice houses coming out.
Yep.
We are able to deliver to our condos as well. So if you want to come out for the weekend with your family or friends and rent a condo, we can deliver food and all kinds of drinks over there as well.
Or if you run out of beer and you're on the pontoon and you need you can always stop by,
Yeah.
And so,
grab that.
what's the website? Is it the landing?
The landing on
ML.com. So the
Yeah.
landing on ML.com.
And if you are a Facebook person, we post all of our specials
Okay.
on Facebook. So please like us and you'll get posts about we run a lunch special and a supper special every day, in addition to our normal menu.
Cool.
So
Well,
Yeah.
I'm so excited that we were able to connect and talk a little bit and get the story behind where you're from, John, and how you guys met and how you've come to Madison Lake and called that your home. So I appreciate you taking the time, and obviously at a busy time in your job
Yeah.
right now.
And I think we hit it like right on the head too because of the recent announcement. But I
Yeah.
just want to give a big thanks, to Bolton Mank Studios, and also just to close, the Landing on Madison is a bar and grill and resort on beautiful Madison Lake. So the Landing is owned and operated by Shelly, who is our guest today.
All right,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.